right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Waters Run Deep podcast. Joined by myself, Chris, as well as Amanda and Angela today. We're going to get into some JFK-related stuff that Amanda's brought to the table here. And first, we'll do some Wacky World news, but a couple housekeeping reminders from the beginning. Just please rate and review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. We could use it. We have a few on there, but we could use some more as always. We love getting it. Makes us feel, good at what we're putting out there. People are listening to. Just keep rate and review, and then also share with your friends, family, anybody who listen to us. You can reach out to us at the Waters Run Deep podcast at gmail.com if you want to come on and have a chat with us, be a guest on the show, have a suggestion for a topic, or just want to say hello. You can also get us on TWRD_podcast on Instagram. And as always, just reach out. I don't care. We don't care how you do it. Just do it.
All right. And I believe you have an amazing Wacky World news to kick us off with.
Oh, yes. I love it when we have the best ones via Instagram. So this happened earlier this month. You want to say the dates? I guess I can say the dates, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, November 11th. 2 daycare workers were busted for allegedly running a child fighting ring.
I am just imagining how awesome. Our listeners, you can't see Christopher's face. I don't know. Maybe we need to start recording this where you can see it and put it on YouTube because his face is priceless.
I have no words. I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah. So it was in South Carolina. There was multiple charges for directing 3 and 4-year-olds in their care to fight each other and allowing violence to proceed without correction.
I guess it teaches survival of the fittest, I guess. I mean...
Okay, so what law are they breaking? I'm assuming it's like
child abuse. Child endangerment for sure.
What if the kids wanted to do it?
And that's the thing, and then it'd just be child endangerment because they didn't stop it. I think it'd be
gotcha.
Child abuse if they could prove that they instigated it, or of course that they did it themselves. But at very least, child endangerment. I mean, so how are they? Do they know how they were going about like instigating it?
Let me scroll down.
This makes me chuckle.
So let's see who's lost her. The sheriff informed the local news that the behavior started out with the 2 individuals saying the teacher had promoted other students and other clients of the daycare to use violence to try to punish a child to make them compliant.
So kind of like an older brother thing, like, dad tells older brother to get younger brother in line by tuning him up a little bit or something. It kind of seems like that's going on, but at a much larger scale. And with somebody else's kids at that.
Yeah, I think this is hilarious.
It is. Well, I mean, it's not, but it is in the same way. And the fact that it's 2 women, one's 27 and one's 56.
Wow. That just took this story for a twist there. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what it got to that they were like, or how bad it got that they were like, man, let's try this.
I don't have offsprings, but how naughty would your offspring have to be for you to be like, I can't take this anymore. We have to start a fight ring. And was there gambling on the fight ring? Like, could I have picked the winner? Yeah.
Maybe they were gambling on the side with snacks, like the kids were taking bets on the side with snacks. 2 Cheetos on the girl with a ponytail.
I see you 2 Cheetos.
And raise you 4.
I mean, honestly, if we think of it that way, then we're just kind of creating some entrepreneurs who are learning to take what they have and investing.
And were they refereeing the fight? Like, were they stopping it before like somebody was kicked while they're down? I mean, was that going on, or was it just like a free for all, like mosh pit style? Like, what kind of fight do we got going on?
Exactly. These are all very important questions.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the article I'm looking at doesn't go into details about that.
I wouldn't see why it would. I think that would be discomforting if they did, but I think if it was refereed and it was all above board and, you know, the athletics commission signed off on the fighting, I say let it go. Let it happen.
I mean, I think this could be a new reality TV show. I'm just saying.
Yeah. America's kid top fighter.
Yeah. And like, you're basically just preparing them for MMA. So really, I would think it's kind of a, what do you call it? It's a not gymnastic program, athletic program that your school offers.
What were the ages? Does it say the ages of the kids range?
3 and 4.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is a great athletic offer.
So American Toddler Ultimate Fighter. American Toddler UTUF.
UDIF.
No, I'm sorry. ATUF. American Toddler Ultimate Fighter.
I like toddler tackle. Toddler tackles tonight.
Triple T's.
Triple T. I mean, okay, so currently we have a Samsung TV in our house. And I don't know if y'all have it, but like Samsung actually offers like its own cable. It's really weird. And so we only have we have more cable boxes than we need, but it's because my mother's addicted to CBS. But in our bedroom, we don't have a cable box, but we have this connection to the Samsung thing. And I sometimes like don't pay attention and it just like pops up there and I will be like, oh, well, what's on this? So the other day I landed on the WWE channel or the wrestling channel. And it's not just like typical wrestling. Like they have like little human wrestling, like smaller, vertically challenged people wrestling. They have women wrestling. So I feel like there is a market that we could probably do some toddler tackling.
I think so. I mean, I think it's like I said, if it's refereed and it's, you know, it's above board, of course the parents have to be in agreement. I think I don't see an issue with it.
No.
But I'm obviously, absolutely. I see in this case, though, it doesn't sound like the parents had any idea this was going on. I wonder how they found out. If like they just came home because they got black eyes and teeth knocked out, and they're like, what's going on at school, Timmy? Oh, it's just the new fighting league we're in.
It's our child fight club. No big deal.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to talk about it.
Yeah. First rule.
Oh, you broke the first rule, Timmy. I imagine that one of the kiddos came home and was like, Mom, today was the best day ever. And they were like, why is that, John? And he was like, I won the fight. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? Or one of the moms like realized that their kid hadn't brought their lunch and dropped it off and was like, what in the fuck is happening?
Or those I'd much rather see than a kid coming home and being upset because they lost.
Right.
And finding out that way. I think that would be the worst way. I think that kid would probably get beat up even more when he came to school. Or
we don't want that kid to get beat up.
That's crazy. The age range of the adults for, used loosely, but the adults was 26 and was 54 or whatever. And they were in agreement 56. To do this.
It was 56. Like almost 30 years between them.
Yes, that's I think the most impressive thing, because you think the kid might think that, the younger of the two might think that of this idea, but the daughter like, no, we can't do that. That's crazy, like snap back into reality, but apparently not.
I mean, you don't know. I kind of liked your question, Chris. Like, maybe this was a last resort. Maybe they were like, fuck, whatever.
Just let it rip.
Like, I just got to do what you got to do, I guess.
That daycare must have been off the chain.
Off the chain. But also, I don't know. That makes me like giggle a lot. Good story. Good stories, Ange.
Yes.
Today, I am going to share a little bit about the JFK assassination. This is a shallow dive. I would say maybe we need to put on some goggles if your eyes get a little watery, maybe like a little bit of the nose plugs, but you don't need to put scuba gear or any kind of snorkeling material on for this deep dive, because it's not that deep. And that is because if we were to go deep, we could probably do a whole episode on like one of these shared, which maybe that's what we do going forward. But I brought up that I would like to talk about this because we are very close to the 60th year anniversary of this, which is insane to think about. That it's been 60 years since this happened. And so, yeah. Without further ado, here we go. So 60 years ago this week, what is referred to as a nasty loner with a cheap rifle changed the course of history. Or, in our world, we like to say, did they? At 12:30 p.m. on November 22nd, 1963, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated. In his open-top limousine in Dallas, moving through an echoey, wedge-shaped city park called the Dealey Plaza. Have either of you been to the Dealey Plaza? I try not to visit.
I've only been to Texas once, so no.
What part of Tejas have you been to?
H-Town.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like Houston. Topher, you've been there?
Briefly, it was on a trip. I didn't stay there long. It was 10, 15 years ago, maybe something like that. I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, I have never been to Dallas. I have also been to Texas, but I have been to H-Town and Austin. I've never been to Dallas. We do have friends in Dallas. I have lots of friends there, so holler if you listen. So maybe I'll make a way there, but it's a pretty big deal, and they have like a tribute to it, or not tribute, a memorial to it, I guess you would say. Anyways. From most witnesses' accounts. So for our listeners who maybe don't know a lot about the JFK assassination, this was like a parade that was happening, that was parading him and the governor of Texas. And they were going down this park, kind of this road by Dealey Plaza. And there was tons of people out looking to be able to get a glimpse of the president, because that was really like how they could see it.
And see, I have a thing about that because, and you might even get into this, and I apologize if you do, but before the shooting happened, there was a ton of people. But if you watch the video, it gets to be where there's not as many people. I don't know if you touch on that, but I wanted to mention that. There was a ton of people there, like earlier in the parade, but as it got further along, it seemed less and less and less. I
don't actually like touch on that specifically, so that's a good thing for us to keep in mind. Yeah. And I will post like a snippet of the video that Chris is talking about.
This is a brooder. And I'm sorry, man, I'm like stomping all over this, and I hope you don't mind. But the other thing that's weird with the Zapruder film, and I'm sure we're going to go through that even more, but there's some interesting things with the foreground of that. It almost seems like the people that are behind the car, like on the other side of the car, they almost seem bigger than the actual car itself. Like it seems like off. I don't know. There's something about that video that just
like
seems
the
off.
perspective is weird.
Yeah. And I have a couple other tidbits with that I'll touch on when we get to that point. But yeah, I just thought those two things specifically about the people and the amount of people is weird to me.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point to bring up, Chris, because this is a video that I feel like if I was told to close my eyes, I remember seeing the video. I don't know if you all could like.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think, and I don't know if it's also because, we
weren't born when it happened.
No, we weren't born, obviously, but we were born like 20 years after.
Yeah.
And then 30 years after, at least Angela and I were absolutely old enough to remember like seeing that. And I mean, Chris, you too, I would say, but like, I mean, this is something that like pretty much before September 11th, this was probably the most talked about thing. And like,
definitely one of them,
of that world. Yeah. I would say like that and probably like the fall of the Berlin Wall and like Vietnam, which all kind of went together. Where I can see like nowadays, I don't know if children, like if it's just something that's shared, where for us, I think it was so impactful because like our parents lived through it. Right.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
And Chris and my mom, our
parents,
like, our parents met JFK. Chris, did you know that your dad met JFK?
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. They went to a luncheon on the base. He came like a couple months right before he was shot. He came to Germany. Yeah. He came to Germany for a luncheon and Pop-Up was invited with the family and they got to go have lunch with him. Like it was like multiple families, but they were one of them. And my mom still has the program from it.
I think I've seen that. Wow.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it and I'll see if I can post a picture of it. Because she got in trouble for bringing it to school the next day. And obviously, if my mom went, then your dad had to have gone because my mom was like 10.
I would think.
So I don't think he wouldn't have gone.
And the other interesting thing is, I mean, not interesting thing, but it kind of goes along with that. Is like it's probably one of the most staple things that happen close to our lifetime. I mean, we'll look back and our kids will say the same thing about 9/11. They didn't live through it, but it was a traumatic thing that was during our lifetime that they don't remember, but no, we remember. So it's kind of like a close link because of that. So I think it's kind of similar.
Yeah, like it shaped our country, right? If we think about it, just like 9/11 has truly shaped us as millennials in our country. I think this shaped our parents, just like Pearl Harbor shaped our grandparents.
Right. Yeah.
And I would even probably argue World War I shaped our great grandparents.
Yeah.
Or I guess assassination of what's his face? The Archduke of Austria. Anyways, okay. So as we're talking about the witnesses, most witnesses reported hearing 3 gunshots. And then one witness reported seeing a gunman aim and fire from, this is the story that is accepted as the truth. And they say that with quotation marks. One witness saw a gunman aim and fire the third shot from an upper window of a Texas school book depository. Fun fact about Texas school books. That is actually what most textbooks in America come from, the Texas school book depository.
Yes.
So that is an interesting, fun thing. Before police could seal off the building.
What day of the week was this?
Well, it was December or November, a Friday. But most people weren't working because
that's what I was going to ask. Like, did they shut down the textbook factory?
Yeah. So they shut down the town or the whole city because the president was here. And it was a big deal back then. Where I think nowadays, it's not that big of a deal to shut down like the city or like, I mean, we've had President Biden and like Vice President Harris and President Trump. Like we've had them come to Denver and they've never shut Denver down. But I think back then it was a little bit different because you didn't have the constant like viewing of the president. Like now we see him all the time. Maybe we should go back to back then.
Yeah.
So before the building could be sealed off, 24-year-old depository employee, he did work there, an ex-Marine, Lee Harvey Oswald, left via the front door. Police found his abandoned rifle on the 6th floor, near the corner window, and a sniper's nest made of cartons. Oh, and a sniper's nest made of book cartons. Sorry about that. Weird. They found 3 spent shells. On the street, Oswald took a cab to his suburban apartment, where he changed clothes and grabbed his revolver. Leaving on foot, he encountered a police officer named J.D. Tippit. He shot him in cold blood. What does that mean, precisely, cold blood?
Just mercilessly. And you know what at the police station, what they called old J.D. Tippit? His nickname was? JFK.
Really?
He looked just like
handsome?
him.
Interesting.
Looked just like him. Yeah, let me see. That's what part of the story that they say that they swapped the bodies. Because he looks so much like him and he was shot in the face. And I was gonna say the gunshot that you see in the picture is different from the gunshot you see like as a wound. Here, I got a picture of him.
So do you think that Oswald shot J.D. Tippit because he thought he looked like JFK and he didn't do his... Oh, well, we can talk about that later. Because I have theories about Oswald, so...
Yeah, we can get into that. Here, am I able to share?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Check this guy out.
Oh, yeah.
And here's a cut in half picture.
Wow.
Very, very close, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I will share this picture on our Instagram for folks in our share group. Yeah, JD looked very similar to JFK.
Yeah, that's why they nicknamed him JFK at the police station. So anyway, continue.
Interesting. Minutes later, Oswald, looking breathless and disheveled, entered a nearby theater, slipping mid-session into a movie called War is Hell. It says the police were called. I'm not sure if the police were called because some random person joined a movie or because people just sort of thought it was suspicious. But the films...
That's another weird thing in the story.
Yeah.
So he shot JD and then went to the movies?
Yeah. So
he shot him JD in the face.
Yeah.
So wouldn't he have like a little bit of blood spatter on him?
Yeah.
Depending on the distance.
I mean, it says that he was breathless and disheveled. He entered a nearby theater, slipping into a mid-session movie. And that's when police were called. So I don't know if like police were called because this random person who like looked all like crazy and had blood on him just sort of barged into the movie theater, and the people that worked there were like, what the F? Not sure.
That's possible. I mean, they wouldn't see him in the movie because it's all dark. They would have had him see him like before he went into the movie, looking all bloody. But if
they were like, sir, 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 and then he like ignored them.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So then the film stopped, the lights went up, the police arrived, and they moved into the aisles where Oswald stood up and said, well, it's all over now. Which is a very interesting thing for him to have said.
What's all over now?
Right? He punched a police officer in the face, drew his pistol, but was pummeled to the ground before he could commit the 3rd murder of the day. There, he cried out, I protest this police brutality. 2 days later, Oswald was murdered in custody during a botched transfer from botched transfer from police headquarters to county jail. On live TV, in black and white, remember you, he was led by police into a crowded parking garage. A Dallas strip club owner named Jack Ruby lunged into the frame with a loaded revolver and shot Oswald fatally in the stomach. Ruby thought he would have become an American hero the day that he knocked Oswald off. But this was far from the truth. Ruby has condemned it to a nightmare, a future of denialism and conspiracy theories. Given time, Americans might have accepted the fact that there was a lone shooter, but to have two people within 2 days kill randomly was hard to swallow, even in America and Dallas. So a lot of people are saying that because of Ruby is where this whole conspiracy. In the 6 decades since Kennedy's murder, opinion polls have consistently shown that more than 50% of Americans believe that there is a conspiracy behind the murders. Sometimes the figure climbs to 80%. We'll probably see it a little bit higher now because we're 60 years out and people are starting to talk more. They also recently had a Secret Service agent who is like close to death who came out and talked about stuff. So we'll see some things climb. But
we already know the reason why he was assassinated. It's because birds aren't real.
Sure. It's true. So the assassination has been called the 7 seconds that broke the back of the American century, the crime that consumed a culture, or it also has been referred to as the crime that ushered in America's age of paranoia. Paranoia? Yeah, paranoia. There you go.
I was going to say, it's not paranormal. That's ghosts.
But it could be as we talk about this.
Yeah.
So in 2003, which was 40 years,
the year of our graduation.
The year of Angela and my high school graduation. ABC News found that 70% of Americans believe that the death was a result of a broader plot. This was because of the trajectory of bullets. There wasn't like a square kind of like how Oswald was perched on the 6th floor. Did it work? There was a suggestion of a second gunman. We've all heard of the grassy knoll in the plaza. Others even believe a larger conspiracy. Was he killed by the CIA over anger at the Bay of Pigs? Was it Lyndon B. Johnson? Because he's a man. Why not? Also, fun fact: Lyndon B. Johnson, I believe, was from Texas, so he was actually way more loved in Dallas than Kennedy.
Yeah, and have you ever heard the phone call between LBJ and Jackie not long after his death?
Mm.
It is very creepy. Like, it almost seems like LBJ is like subtly hitting on Jackie.
He was a creep, so I'm not surprised.
It was very unsettling to hear that.
I don't talk about Jackie a lot here, but I would at the end love to talk a little bit more just about Jackie. Like, I think that a lot of what she did was hidden, but she really was like strong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So others say Oswald a KGB operative? Were there mobsters that were mad at Kennedy because his brother was sort of prosecuting organized crime at the time? There's just so much speculation over this one historical political assassination that it's like one of the most popular parlor game conversations. Like, so many people can talk about this and have their own theories. And I remember, Chris, when our uncle passed away, my mom said to me, which I thought was just so not my mother personality, but she turned to me and said, well, at least he'll know who killed Kennedy. And of course, that was, I guess, because Uncle Charlie would go to heaven and find out. I think that was something that they always talked about, was like, who killed Kennedy? He wasn't even born yet. When Kennedy was 2 years out before Uncle Charlie was born.
Or maybe because, you die, you learn all the facts of the universe, maybe, kind of thing.
And then I replied with, well, Mom, we know who killed Kennedy. And she said, I don't know. And I said, no, Mom, it was the CIA. We know that. But that's my own belief. And we can talk about that later. So in this episode, we're going to dive into some conspiracy theories based on the Kennedy assassination. It's not the only historical event to spark theories, but it's probably one of the most mainstream. And we're going to talk a little bit first about why that is. So why does Kennedy's death spark so many conspiracy theories? Do you guys have any ideas?
I think because it was so out of the blue. I mean, we've had deaths, assassinations before Kennedy. You had Abe Lincoln, and I'm sure there's some others, but Abe Lincoln came to mind. And, even those have conspiracy theories. I think it's because it's such an impactful event. People, and there's not 100% facts, cold, hard facts of why, who, all the, everything, that it alludes to people to speculate on, this is who did it and this is why they did it. And then there's, so many different theories as a result, people trying to fit everything together.
Yeah. So another fun fact brought to you by Amanda's Fun Fact. Fantastic world.
Can we have a fun fact bird? Can we name him?
Yeah, our fun fact bird, Freddie. Brought to you by Freddie the Fun Fact Bird.
Perfect.
I like that.
Or Ferdinand. I like Ferdinand.
Drop Dead Fred Bird.
So Ferdinand the Fun Fact Bird. The fun fact. Oh shit! I had it and I forgot. What do you call
foul?
Foul. Thank you, Chris. I knew it was there. Our fun fact foul friend for So in the White House, have either of you been to the White House? Chris, I think you went with me when we went. Right?
I can honestly say I've never been to the White House.
We used to go to Easter all the time. For Easter all the time.
Yeah, we used to go for Easter. And then I got a tour with Girl Scouts where I got to meet Bill Clinton.
I was going to say, you met Clinton, didn't you?
I did. And I was like 8 or 9. How old are you when you were a brownie? 8? Yeah, like 7, 8. And I remember meeting him really quickly. He just came in and said, hi, girls, and so happy you're here. And I was like, and I turned to my mother and I said, he's dreamy. And my mom said, don't tell your grandfather that. And I feel like that should have been their first clue that I was going to be a Democrat. Anyways. Yeah, right. But no, so the fun fact about the White House is almost all the presidents they have portraits of them, and only 2 of them have their heads down. And do you know which 2 they are?
The 2 that were assassinated?
Yes. So our 16th president, which is Abraham Lincoln, and then John F. Kennedy. So kind of interesting. That's to show that they were killed in office.
Huh.
So
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And Kennedy's picture is really, I'll post it on our thing too. Kennedy's picture is actually, to me, I felt quite emotional because it was painted obviously after he was assassinated. And it's this very dark hue, it's like a gray hue. It's very interesting. And it's in, what room is it in? Blue room, I think. I'll have to figure that out. Anyways, okay. So one expert says that all of these conspiracies actually started with what happened after the president was shot. So remember Jack Ruby? We talked about him earlier. He is the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Right. So they actually consider him, some experts do, as the godfather of the modern conspiracy movement. So Michael Gange, who is the author of Thinking Critical about the Kennedy assassination, says that because Lee Harvey Oswald had been put before a jury and tried, if Lee Harvey Oswald had been put in front of a jury and tried, this guy does not think there had been any talk of conspiracy, because people wouldn't have started to dig into the assassination. All of the ability to send them down the alleged path would have been cut off because of the jury. Kennedy kind of created a blueprint for conspiracy theories that would follow, because Ruby did not allow Oswald to have that trial and jury. Then there is the Warren Commission, which officially concluded in 1964. The Warren Commission is what was created to look into the assassination of Kennedy.
Yeah.
It issued 26 volumes of documents to support the determination that Lee Harvey Oswald had acted alone. But rather than closing the book on JFK's death, the report merely served as a fuel for an already kindled fire of doubt and suspicion. Since then, even government investigators have stepped away from the lone assassin theory. So even some government people are like, no, we think there was more people. And that actually recently has come out based on what this guy was talking about, the guy I was telling you about earlier. In 1978, so that 15 years later, the U.S. House Select Committee on Assassinations ended its own lengthy inquiry by finding that JFK was probably assassinated as the result of a conspiracy.
Interesting.
Yeah. The panel acknowledged it was unable to identify the other gunmen or the extent of the conspiracy, but armed with mountains of subsequential release documents, there has been no shortage of people willing to offer their own conclusion. Again, among these leading suspects of thoughts is Cubans angry with the Bay of Pigs fiasco, mafiosos enraged by Robert Kennedy's attack on organized crime, military-industrial complex worrying over JFK's thought of war in Vietnam. And one theorist even floated the notion that Kennedy's limo driver shot the president as part of an effort to cover up proof of alien invasion. Anything. We're going to get into each of those a little bit. Anything but that Oswald, who was a helpless former Marine, was in the right place at the right time with the motive and opportunity to pull off one of the most audacious crimes in history. Those who questioned the findings of the Warren Commission began posting alternative theories, which have spawned into a cottage of industry books, documentaries, and websites. And honestly, like when I typed in JFK conspiracy, it was insanely overwhelming. Which makes sense. I mean, we're still talking about this 60 years almost to the date. Right. Like insanely overwhelming. Like I said earlier, I don't think one session would give any justice, like one podcast episode to this, because it's so insane. So we'll have to maybe do some deeper dives. Maybe next year when it's 61 years, we'll do a deeper dive into one of these.
Yeah. We'll pick a few of the more specific topics of type of assassinations and dive into it.
So one of the first books to challenge the report was by Mark Lane, and it was called Mark Lane's Rush to Judgment, a critique of the Warren Commission inquiry into the murders of President John F.K., Officer J.D. Tippit, and Lee Harvey Oswald. That is the fucking longest name for a book. Can you imagine you're sitting with your friends and you're like, well, I'm reading a new book. And they're like, oh, cool. What's your new book? And you say, oh, it's called A Critique of the Warren Commission's Inquiry into the Murders of President John F. Kennedy, Officer J.D. Tippit, and Lee Harvey Oswald.
Definitely add that to our book club reading.
So that came out in 1966. Then Edward J. Epstein, not related to the other Epstein, which would be an awesome topic, by the way. He wrote a book called Inquest, the Warren Commission and the Establishment of Truth. Both of these books came out in 1966, only 3 years after the incident happened, which means they wrote it probably a year after because it takes a little bit for things to be published. So that was the beginning of this whole thing. So I'm going to go into a couple, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about Cuba. So at this time, Cuba had a revolution and went from being a democratic socialist sort of country to a communist country under the control of Fidel Castro. And that was really worrisome to Americans because they were getting a lot of aid and help from Russia. So that is why we went in with Bay of Pigs. It was a failed, I like how they call it, a failed fiasco. So there was a lot of talk about Cuba and all of that. So Cuba is a central member to a lot of the conspiracy theories put out there. There is a theory that the Cuban government was responsible. There's some information maybe about it from the Senate Select Committee being kind of mad, and that the CIA maybe had done it because, the CIA apparently was trying to assassinate Fidel Castro. And then because of that, they were retaliating and trying to assassinate Kennedy. Castro denies these claims, and he argues that it would have been too much of a risk to retaliate against the United States. I mean, remind you, Cuba is probably like the size of, honestly, probably Maryland. It's small, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's not a large country in the sense, and they definitely did not have as much military aid as the U.S. Now, honestly, if they wanted to, they probably could have gotten Russia involved, and then that's a whole different thing. We probably wouldn't be here. There's some also other thoughts that find great significance in this trip that Oswald made a trip in September 1963, so 2 months before, to Mexico City. And he remained there until October, and then he tried to continually contact Cuban and Soviet consulates. So thinking that he was working with them might have been why that they're so big. And then the other part of the Cuban political conspiracy spectrum has theories that tie the assassination in Oswald to anti-Castro groups that were angry at Kennedy for his withholding of U.S. military support with the Bay of Pigs invasion. So Kennedy's lack of support for the invasion has also been cited as a motive for the CIA. So a lot of really Kennedy's probably big issue when his office was the Bay of Pigs, which is a whole different conversation, but it didn't go great. And so there's some thoughts that people may have assassinated him because of that and because of his lack of support there. And these theories emphasize Oswald's efforts on behalf of the pro-Castro Fair Play for Cuban Committee. So he actually attended a committee in New Orleans in April that was pro-Castro. And then he also had some encounters with people who were pro and anti-Castro. He also, some facts about Lee Harvey Oswald, is that he lived in Russia for a little bit and has experience there. So there's also just some thoughts that he had connections with the Soviets and was doing this on the Soviet, because of the Soviets. So yeah, there's a lot of little random things that come into play that I think is where the conspiracy theories sort of come in. And as it was said earlier, if Oswald would have been given an opportunity to speak, we may not be having this conversation, but because there was no trial or any of that for him to share his story, there's a lot of thoughts of was he a person at play? And then was Ruby the other person at play? The other thing to think about here is we are also sort of getting into the time of MK Ultra and the CIA mind play and stuff. And so there's lots of also thoughts about was Oswald part of the MK Ultra world? Was Ruby part of it? And we'll just not know. Chris, did you want to say something?
No, I just think that's an interesting one too. Is that if Harvey was part of, or Harvey or Ruby, but either one of them, part or both of the MK Ultra program, where they were roped in, and that's why Harvey was saying he's a patsy, and Jack Ruby said that he doesn't even know what came over him. He just did it. That's a very interesting avenue.
I think, and honestly, and we can at the end talk about what we feel is the truth, quote unquote, but that one always rings true a little bit to me. All right, so I'm going to give you the top 10 conspiracy theories that I kind of dug up and a little bit about them. So here are some interesting, so there's a lot of theories. So the first theory is that it was an accident. And I actually just heard this theory the other day, and I thought this actually probably is super true. So author Bonner Menger believes that Oswald fired on JFK and a Secret Service a Secret Service agent fired back with a Colt AR-15 high-velocity rifle, and that the officer actually lost his balance when the car suddenly braked and accidentally discharged his weapon and then killed the U.S. president. And the reason I say this is because of the angle where the bullet hit the president in the back of the head. Would make more sense if it came from the limousine behind.
Yeah.
And so that one, that's why I said that one actually, if we look at what we know now. So the other thing is now we have more ability to do forensic evidence, right? Forensic evidence. And so I think that that's why this is kind of coming out as oh, this makes more sense. So there were no eyewitnesses or evidence to back up this theory, but also, Secret Service agents and presidential aides did report bullets whizzing past them. So there's a lot of thoughts here, and that actually this thought actually coincides with the recent sort of conversation that the Secret Service agent, who's really old now, says is that that's how it happened, and they actually found 3 bullets, and we know one of them hit the governor or something like that. One of them was found sort of in front. And then the one that was found in JFK was actually different. So that's why they actually really think this is what happened, but they weren't going to say it out loud that our Secret Service said it, right? Because that's a whole, shit. So it's easier to pin it on one person that obviously shots were fired, whatever. But that part. So that's interesting. So the next theory is called the Umbrella Man. You all familiar with this theory?
Yeah, I am.
Ange?
It sounds familiar.
So did either of you watch the Umbrella Academy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where this kind of comes from. So some pin JFK's murder on a man standing under a black umbrella on November 22nd, 1963, which was weird because by all accounts, it was a sunny day. It must have been a signal, if not the murder weapon, what they're saying. The theory is so popular that Oliver Stone fingered him in JFK and then appears in the Umbrella Academy. Unfortunately, the Umbrella Man, who was Louis Stephen Witt, said it was a protest at the appeasement policies of Joseph P. Kennedy when he was the ambassador to the Court of St. James, and a reference to the British PM Neville Chamberlain's umbrella and the appeasement of Hitler and the Nazis. So, of course, yeah, we knew that. So the guy who had the umbrella was like, no, I was just protesting in a very, very British way. All right. This one makes me chuckle. The Coca-Cola conspiracy.
What?
All right. So Lee Harvey Oswald was a Dr. Pepper fan. And we know this because even Oswald's favorite beverage was part of the intrigue. What did Oswald drink? So the conspiracy of one author, which is Jim Moore, sits at a theory that Oswald acted alone because after the assassination, he was seen drinking Coca-Cola instead of his beloved Dr. Pepper. Moore believes that there can only be one realistic explanation. Oswald must have shot the president and chose the wrong soft drink from the vending machine because he was so nervous.
This doesn't make sense at all.
No, it does not.
Yeah, that one I don't think is real.
That's a book I'm not buying.
But you are going to buy the one that has 800 words to the title, I hope. Okay. Number 4. Woody Harrelson's dad was apparently the shooter.
Really?
Never
heard this one.
I feel like I've heard that one.
Yeah. So Charles Harrelson, who was the father of the Now You Can See Me actor Woody Harrelson, or other things, also apparently the father of Matthew McConaughey, because of recent conversations that we had.
I thought we haven't got confirmation on that.
I thought they had.
I thought we didn't.
Apparently, maybe, possibly his father. They're saying that he was actually the man on the grassy knoll, that he was one of 2 gunmen, and that he later was arrested as dressed like a tramp in the Dealey Plaza. Police eventually named 3 other men as the tramps. In 1968, Harrelson Sr. was convicted of murdering a businessman in a contract hit in South Texas. So Woody Harrelson's dad was not like the most upstanding citizen. And Woody will tell you that too. Like, he didn't really know him very well. And he did a lot of like contract hits and stuff. And there are some thoughts that maybe he also was a CIA person.
I did not know that.
It's actually a really interesting story. And the way that they actually do think that Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are connected is actually really interesting too. So yeah, could be that. It would be really entertaining if there was like a movie made about this and Woody Harrelson played his dad and Matthew McConaughey played JFK. I'm just calling it now.
All right, I'd go see that.
Oh, I would see it too. We just watched Tropic Thunder last night.
Oh my God.
You grew hands.
Kids did not age well.
No.
But it's still so funny.
And my mom, like halfway through, was like, I think this is a mockery of the Vietnam War. And I was like,
halfway through?
It took her that long to realize
you're
it?
really not wrong. No, she didn't like it from the beginning, but she like put up with that. And then she's like, I'm not watching anymore. And I was like, yeah, they're not wrong, but this is hilarious. And then the best part, and Adam doubted me, is that Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for an Academy Award for that movie.
Really?
Yes. And I remember that because I remember him saying,
playing a dude, playing another dude, this guy does another dude.
That's exactly. He didn't go full retard. Sorry, we're not really saying that word. They just say that in the movie. But he...
You never do that. Never do full retard.
But he... I remember that he did get nominated because I remember him saying, if I won, I'm giving it back, because it was a complete mockery. And I was like, that's what this whole thing is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a mockery of the whole thing. Anyways, I laughed
Robert Downey Jr.
so hard. It was such a beautiful,
did your mom like it?
No, she stopped watching and walked away. So I kept watching and laughed very hard. Also watched Shazam 2 and thought that was funny. Anyways, back to our conspiracy theories. So the next one is the Better Call Saul theory, which I think is interesting.
Better Call Saul theory.
So Better Call Saul is a TV show very much past this time.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I've been off. Okay.
I just didn't know there was a...
Yeah, so let me explain a little bit to you. So an appointment in Dallas, police officer Hugh McDonald blames the Soviets for contracting Saul, a rogue CIA agent and assassin, to kill JFK. So this is where we come in with the rogue CIA, like Soviet Union Apparently, McDonald freelanced for the CIA and had met Saul at the agency's headquarters. He later tracked him down to obtain a confession, but not an arrest warrant. Saul apparently shot JFK from a building across the street from Oswald's perch in the Texas School Book Depository. If true, it's thought that Saul conspired with Oswald, or they may have just both had the same instruction to assassinate the president. So I think they're saying Better Call Saul as like a way to make it hip with the modern thing. But I guess Saul was the name of the rogue CIA agent who the Soviets wanted him to kill. So, All right, our next one is called the Black Dog Man theory.
The Black Dog Man?
Yeah. So, Robert Groden, another theorist, argues that a black dog man figure can be seen in the Pyracanthia bush in frame 413 of the Zapruder film. The problem with this theory is that the House Select Committee on Assassination included that an individual was in front of the bushes, not behind them. Bill Miller argues that the man is actually a groundskeeper named Emmett Hudson, but no one has fully ruled out the doggy yet.
That's another one I have never heard.
Yeah.
Me either. Interesting.
Yeah.
Number 7 it talks about Oswald's trip to Mexico. So again, remember Oswald visited Mexico before Kennedy's death. They believe it may have been to finalize plans to assassinate Kennedy and how he would escape. He visited the Cuban and Russian embassies or consulates probably on his 6th day during his trip there. 3 of the days he was there, he spent with pro-Castro groups, seemingly confirmed by a journalist in Mexico. But the conversation, however, believes that, however, the journalist did live far away at the time, so they're not sure how they could have talked with Oswald or knew who Oswald is. So that's some like, well, that doesn't work. But he apparently was in Mexico and had talked with Cuba and Russia. So again, connecting Cuba and Russia to that theory. All right, now we're going to get into a couple like ones that a lot of people believe. So the first one is the Illuminati are to blame. So this conspiracy theory believes that JFK delegated presidential power to issue silver certificates to the Treasury, which threatened the power of the Illuminati control over the Federal Reserve. This is actually sort of not true because Kennedy did sign an executive order to do the opposite, which he was intending to phase out silver certificates for the Federal Reserve notes. So, not sure that actually plays in, but. And then aliens organized the hit. This one might be one of my favorites. So Milton William Cooper, who is a former U.S. radio personality and author and gun rights advocate, spread the news about Project Luna, which is when secret aliens based on the dark side of the moon. He states that these secret aliens promoted the conspiracy theory that JFK was assassinated by a gas pressure device, and that aliens supplied the driver of the presidential limo with this gas pressure device because JFK was going to expose the Washington alien collusion.
I don't know if that is...
Use your words.
I love me some Bill Cooper. I hate to say it. Do you know the story of Bill Cooper?
I didn't know Bill Cooper and Milton William Cooper were the same people.
I thought you said William Cooper.
Yeah, Milton William Cooper is probably the same person. Who goes by Milton?
So he's one of the conspiracy greats. Here's his book.
Mm.
Hold a pair of horse. Okay. There he is there.
Yeah, looks like Bill Milton Cooper.
So he was gunned down outside of his house by police because he kind of went nutso. But I've never heard that theory, his theory with the aliens, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's like another deep dive soon. I think that is interesting that aliens organized the hit because JFK was going to expose them.
Well, I have heard that the hit was organized because JFK wanted to come out about aliens being a thing. I have heard that, but I didn't hear that. I never heard it that aliens organized it as a result. I heard it as like the, deep state or shadow government or whatever did it.
All right. So here is the number one thought. The CIA did it. Most Americans trusted broadcaster Walter Cronkite announced JFK's death.
Very good impression.
Thank you. I was going to say it was spot on.
I'm Walter Cronkite. Actually, that's not even fair because I don't think he was like alive or sharing the news when we were alive. Maybe.
I don't know. No, he was. Because I think he did 9/11. I think he reported on 9/11.
I think you're thinking Dan Rathers.
Maybe.
And I'm going to need you to do some background on that one. All right. So Walter Cronkite announced the JFK's death. The world was in shock. So he's the one who got...
Yeah. Hold on. No, that was when he died. So he died in 2009.
How old was he?
But he was... I don't know. You're asking me to do math.
Doesn't just tell you. Okay. Well, while
he was 93.
Look at you, Walter. All right. So when you ever talk to someone about JFK's death, usually can tell you where they were at the moment, what they remember. I remember asking my mom, and she said that they were at school. Or no, they were not at school because they were in Germany. I think they were at home, and they the sounds went off on the base, and that's where they heard it. And then it was weird going to school the next day. So, but there's questions to what was the CIA doing. So Dave Perry, who is a former insurance claim adjuster, who has been digging through JFK's assassination records since 1976, pointed out that the CIA may have had Oswald on the payroll or overheard Oswald's plot through the Soviets from his visit to the Russian embassy. And therefore, that's why they were involved. So that they had a lot of reasons. They were pretty pissed at Kennedy for what he was doing, for his brother's involvement. They were like, we just gotta get rid of this guy. And they claimed that they could maybe have Oswald do it. Kind of like we were saying, like maybe he's a CIA agent. So, so those are my top 10 conspiracy theories. What's your theory, friends, on how JFK or why he was shot?
Birds aren't real. Sticking with it. It wasn't on your list. I'm sticking with it.
So I think it's a mixture of things. I don't think he faked his death. I really like the idea that, and he didn't mention this one, but I really like the idea of the accidental shooting and them covering that up, because that is extremely plausible. Yeah. I just don't see with that how they're able to rope Lee Harvey Oswald into it, unless Lee Harvey Oswald was planning on doing it and he didn't do it, and they somehow knew about it, you know, and
that makes
they
sense.
used him as a
Right.
patsy.
Mhm.
The other thing too is about the Oswald doing it is during the Zapruder films. If you look at Dealey Plaza, the shots would have been coming over top of Zapruder's head, would have been whizzing by. And there is like no reaction from him. He doesn't move a muscle. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't anything during the whole thing. And nobody does around. That's the other strange thing. Nobody around reacts to the shots going off. So it's just weird that I don't even think.
It was Texas. Let's be fair.
True. Yes.
They're used to gunshots.
Very true. Very true. But still, if they're whizzing, it's a different when you hear a gunshot to when it's whizzing past you. And that alone, they would have flinched or something. And that not happening is just, I don't know. That throws the whole thing off for me. That makes it feel like, was it even bullets at all? Or were they that close, like you said, the accidental shooting that, there was gunshots going off, but it wasn't whizzing past because it was only going from the back of the car to the people sitting there. The directions of the bullets, the way they come in are strange, compared to where JFK was. Well, him too, but Lee Harvey Oswald. It's just the whole thing's weird. That's why I still fall back on the accidental. It's such a interesting case that you can break down. And I've even heard where he's faked his death, where he used what they called a squid to put on he put a squid on his face, and Jackie leaned over, and you can kind of make this out in the video if you were going to lean that direction, where Jackie leaned over and she's looking for the string to activate it to make it go off. And after it goes off, she jumps on the hood because a piece of it that would have exposed the whole thing flew off, and she wanted to get it and I guess hide it before they were found out. So I don't know. There's so many different directions. It's just I don't know if we'll ever know. I mean, unless they release. And then the other thing too is the government just in the past couple of years released a bunch of the documents. Trump was set to release them, and then he extended it, and then Biden released some, but he didn't release all of them. They were supposed to release all of them, and they reclassified a good chunk of them. So it's something in there, and it must be important and detrimental to national security for them to reclassify that portion. I mean, but it's got to be the most damning portion of who did it, who done it.
Yeah, I have some follow-up thoughts, but I'd love to hear what Ange has to say first.
I mean, based on what you went over today, I think accidental seems like the most plausible one out of everything. And then, Chris, I thought it was interesting what you were just saying about, people not flinching and then the crowd kind of decreasing, because he was like one of the most beloved presidents. And you would think they closed the entire city down for him to be there. You would think everyone that lived there or close by, like, you want to disperse, you would want to see him the entire time.
And that part of the tour was the biggest open portion that it would have been the easiest to see him. Or that part of the parade, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Like that would have been the best time, a best spot, because it's a square. I mean, it's like where, people gather, that would have been the most logical point for people to gather to see him come through. And then back then, they provided the map. The map was what direction and route they were taking was known. The public knew. So it's not like they weren't sure. So that's why they didn't go that way.
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like back during that time, like, you'd follow the entire parade. So there would be people walking behind it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to continue to see it. They wouldn't stay stationary. So as it's like going through the path that is released, you get more and more people.
Yeah.
I fully believe it was an accident. I do think that Harvey may have meant to do something. I don't think that he actually killed JFK. I think that there was some sort of scare and the guy behind killed him. Like, I think that, and I think the reason that we are reclassifying is because it makes them look bad. Like, that's, I don't know. I just really think it makes them look bad. And so they are, they don't want to bring that up. You know, they don't want that part. So, Chris, what are you showing us here?
This is the best quality Zapruder film I could find.
Okay.
So you see the crowd of people here?
Mm-hmm.
Ton of people. People asshole to elbows on that street.
Well, it's only one line. There's no one behind them.
Exactly. That's the other weird thing. But keep that in mind of all these people though right now. And they're right there. Why right there? And I watch as they get further.
Yeah,
why isn't anybody there?
Are they not allowed to be on that part of the road, I wonder?
No.
No, they shut down the... Yeah.
So he's already been hit once. And Jackie's checking him out. And this is where they say the squib's being put on.
Oh.
And there she pulled it. She pulled the string, and that's the squib going off right there. And see, you could see there, I hate to say this, but see how nobody flinched? Nobody's like reacting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jackie is, and the Secret Service is.
But no one, like seeing them go by are.
Look how big this person looks. Look how huge this guy looks compared to that car. That guy is a giant. Right?
Yeah.
He's just taking pictures. This guy is trying to run to catch on. Nobody's still reacting.
And there's still no people down there.
No. Where did everybody go?
Huh. So weird.
It is. It's strange. That whole video is just odd.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's interesting that there is this. I mean, I guess we're starting to get into the video of time. So. Oh.
See, by the time he gets to the sign back here, dude, I'll tell you when he gets hit the first time. So before he hits that street sign right here.
That one?
Yeah, this big one in the foreground here. He's hit by the time he comes around on the other side of this sign the first time. But the thing is, the film's been cut, and they have come out and say that and there's proof of that. You can't see it in the YouTube video, but there's proof of that there's the screen, the film's been cut and mended together, or whatever they call that back then.
Spliced.
Yeah. See, right now he just got hit when he was on the other side of the sign. That's why he's grabbing for his neck. It's because he's reaching for it. He was hit the first time.
But they were saying that he it was like you could see the governors looking back. They were saying that it just kind of like went by. It didn't actually wouldn't have caused any super big damage.
It just grazed him.
Yeah.
But still, no one's reacting.
Oh, well, now
not even the people, the cops on the motorcycles.
I used to think for a short period of time, this is Bill Cooper's theory that he was that I knew he was pushing, is that the front seat, the driver did it.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can show you. I believe this for a short period of time, but then if you watch the driver of the limo, the way the angle is, it almost looks like the driver reaches over his shoulder with a handgun and fires at the exact time. Let's see if I can point it out.
You should be able to slow it down if you're on YouTube, right?
Oh, there you can see him look over.
Should be coming up. See, this one's a better quality. You can't see it. there's the poor quality, because this is the best quality one, the 1080p or whatever. The poor quality one, it literally looks like he's reaching over with a gun. When I watched this version, I realized, oh, that's not what happened.
But did the other guy in the front get shot?
Yeah, this guy here did. That's the governor.
That's the governor. And then the other guy, he's down too.
Who, him?
Yeah.
He's Secret Service. I think he's just ducking, looking.
I was going to say that, yeah, he's got to be Secret Service, right?
Yeah, they're both Secret Service, because the one that's driving is the one who's come out recently.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
He actually was Jackie's Secret Service person.
Oh. See, I like to talk to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
This cop right here.
Or the other one on the bike, because there's two of them.
Yeah.
But they're saying, like,
or three.
Behind, if you look back in that car behind, they're saying that's where the accidental bullet came from.
Well, I didn't see anybody with long guns.
I don't know.
They said it was a different gun, wasn't it?
Yeah. They're saying.
No one had their gun drawn.
Yeah.
From what you could see.
Right.
No, they're saying that it was like it was like in the car.
Oh.
Like it was still a rifle, but it was in the car. So, okay. So before we close out, I want to talk a little bit about Jackie. And this isn't conspiracy. I just think this is kind of an interesting, like, just testament to her, who she is. So, everyone probably, like, if you know about this case, you know what Jackie's, like what she wore. She had this beautiful pink Chanel couture, like, outfit on. It was gorgeous. It's like iconic. I think actually it, sits in the, I think it sits in the Smithsonian now. But anyway, it's the famous pink suit, which will forever be embedded into historical conscience. And it is part of the National Archives, and it can be viewed to the public. But has not been seen. It will not be seen until 2063 now, according to Caroline Kennedy. So I think she had it put away until it's been 100 years since her father's passing. But so Kennedy was seated on the left side of the president in the back of the open top limousine. When they arrived at the hospital, so immediately after he was shot, her outfit, her suit was just covered in his blood, right?
Right.
And when they got to the hospital, Lady Bird Johnson, who is LBJ's wife, was said to say that she cast one look over her shoulder and saw the president's car as a bundle of pink, like a drift of blossoms lying in the back seat. And it was Mrs. Kennedy lying over the president's body. So it is later said that Jacqueline said she did not want people to see her husband that way. So that's why she was like laying on him, because she did not want people to see him dead. And then at the hospital, she continued to wear the blooded stained suit, and people actually brought her clothes to change. And she said no, that she wanted them to see what they had done. As Lincoln flew down the Boulevard Central Lane, her pillbox hat, so the hat she had on, caught the wind and it slid off her forehead. But she violently yanked it off and flung it down. She wasn't going to wear it. And then she actually ripped her hat pin out of her hair. So she even like that. No one knows where the hat is today. It apparently is gone, and they don't know where it is. And then several people asked Kennedy if she would like to change, but she refused. And when Lady Bird offered to send someone to help her, she responded, "No, I want them to see what they've done to Jack." What I think is interesting, what they have done to Jack makes me think, does she know that it was not what happened?
Yeah.
And then, despite the advice of the physician, who gently tried to persuade her to change out of her gore-soaked pink Chanel suit, she wore the suit alongside Vice President Johnson as he was being sworn in as the 36th president of the United States. And then in the photograph of this ceremony, although most time when we see it, it's black and white, the bloodstains can't be seen because they are on the right-hand side of the suit, and she is photos on the left. But Lady Bird recalls during the swear-in that Jacqueline's hair was falling in her face, but she was still very composed. I looked at Mrs. Kennedy, her dress stained with blood. One leg was almost entirely covered with it, and her right glove was caked with John's blood, her husband's blood. Somehow, that was one of the most poignant signs. The immaculate woman exquisitely dressed and caked in blood. Kennedy was said to have no regrets about refusing to take off her stained suit. Her only regret was that she had washed the blood off her face before Johnson was sworn in. When she finally removed her suit the following morning, her maid folded it and placed it into a box. Days after the assassination, the box was dispatched to her mother, and it wrote on the box, November 22nd, 1963, and was stored in the attic. Eventually, the box was given to the National Archives in Maryland with an unsigned note bearing the letterhead from her family on it. The note read, Jackie's suit and bag, worn November 22nd, 1963. It has never been cleaned, and it was kept out of the public view in an acid-free container in a windowless room, and the precise location is actually secret. And then it will be in 2063 available to be seen as per the deed of Caroline Kennedy, who is the only surviving Kennedy of that family.
Wow.
So just some really, I really think Jacqueline Kennedy is very interesting. I watched a cool special about her. She did not want to be First Lady. It's a very interesting role that she took on, and her ability to, I just don't know how I would do it. Like, I think if my husband or anybody, honestly, that I was sitting next to was shot, I don't know if I could still be able to wear the clothes, all of that while dealing with that. So,
well, you got to think, like, if you look at it from this perspective, you're in shock. You're not going to want to change. But the fact that she's telling Lady Bird she wants them to see what they've done, it kind of twists that in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other interesting thing that we could talk about is another thing. So then there's Robert F. Kennedy, who was also assassinated. No, not Junior. He's crazy. And Jackie also had a really hard time with that. Oh, look at that car. Jeez, there's brain everywhere. So yeah, I would love to kind of talk a little bit more too about Robert's assassination, because he also was shot by a lone gun shooter in a hotel thing. So kind of interesting there. He also played a big part in the Cuba, and yeah, it's an interesting thing. Robert F. Kennedy, when he was home with the aides from the Justice Department, and J. Edgar Hoover is the one who called him and told him his brother had been shot. And when Hoover hung up before he could ask any questions, Kennedy later said he thought Hoover had enjoyed telling him the news, and that shortly after the call from Hoover, Robert F. Kennedy phoned the White House and instructed them to change the locks on the president's file and ordered the Secret Service to dismantle any hidden taping systems in the Oval Office. And then he scheduled a meeting with the CIA to make sure the CIA was not involved in his brother's death. And then Kennedy was later said, Robert Kennedy was later said to tell the investigator, Walter Sheridan, that he asked the director in a way that he couldn't lie to me if the CIA had been involved.
That's so weird that he went through. I get cleaning house, but to do all those things, and then he seemed like he was set on the CIA was involved.
So in 2013, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. take this with what you would like, has been said that his father was fairly convinced that others besides Oswald were involved in his brother's assassination, and that he privately believed the commission had a shoddy piece of craftsmanship when creating the report, and that he did not believe that it was just Oswald, that he believed there were others involved.
Very interesting.
Which is interesting because then he runs for president in when is it? 1968, so about 5 years later, and then is also assassinated in South Dakota. Oh, sorry,
Seems
Dakota.
In like
California.
they just didn't want the Kennedys in office, is what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like, there was a lot of things the Kennedys were trying to do that honestly would have changed the world, right? I mean, Robert was against the Vietnam War. He was, as was John. They were, I think, back then, the fact that they were Catholic was really like worrisome to people because there was the thought that the Pope would get involved, which is, I guess, to us now kind of a chuckle. Fun fact, Biden's Catholic. I try to remind my mother of that when she tries to say he's not godly. I'm like, Mom, he's Catholic and he goes to church every Sunday. He's better Catholic than we are.
Well,
but that shouldn't matter.
Yes,
and I don't
matter. Anyway.
I don't think it should matter. And I don't think it, at the time, I think religion and that was really way different. But the Kennedys were, super into civil rights. Like the civil rights movement happened almost about probably around the same time, right after John F. Kennedy's shooting and right before Robert's, and around that time. And I think one of the big things is, there's a lot of they weren't cool with that at the time. So I think that there were a lot of political things going on that's why I really I want to say it was an accident for Robert or for John, but then I think I look at the Robert things and I'm like, was it really just the CIA who was like, all right, these Kennedys are getting too close. We got to get rid of them.
That's what I think. I mean, I think that family had some knowledge and some power almost to the level of royalty, and the people were afraid of that. You know? And I think they were trying to. It was enough that it was worth killing over.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the Kennedys had a name to themselves, like they were big time, and starting with Papa Joe, and then John, who honestly was never supposed to be anything. He didn't want to be president, but because his brother died in World War II, it was sort of put upon him to be. I think Robert just wanted to be like his brother, and so also came into it, and then it's to me, that I don't know if this is the return of ironic or irony, but I think it's ironic that the one that actually got to make the most success or impact was Teddy, who was the fuck up, and ends up not dying in office. I think he stopped like a year before he died with his brain tumor, but he's the one who ends up seeing old age, and it's like he was the the baby kind of like fuck up. Right. But it still holds power, right? We still are giving a platform to RFK Jr., who maybe we should give less of a platform to on some things.
Right.
We talk about I remember when John F. Jr. died, right? That was like a huge, oh, did he die really? Or did he just get out of the spotlight? And then QAnon saying he's going to come back.
Yeah, that just is, I don't know. That Q stuff is hilarious.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of interesting things. And I would have said the same thing as you did, Chris, that the Kennedys were royalty for a really long time. I would say probably less now. I don't think, they still have a lot of money. They're still doing great and fine. But I wouldn't say that they're royalty as much. It's interesting. I was talking with a friend the other day, and they actually refer to the Kardashians as America's royalty, which made my heart hurt a little bit, but I don't think they're wrong. I think we have totally switched. And this happens, right? If we think of the very short American history, although to us seems long, is short in comparison to other places. We had the Roosevelts and the Astors, the Rockefellers.
Right.
And then the Kennedys. And now we're looking at this new fame, and that's the Kardashians, which
I
actually don't.
That hurts.
No,
so
I
greatly.
actually respect some of them. Like Kim Kardashian's kind of a badass bitch, but I don't I'm not saying I would find them to be royalty. I would rather it be someone else. But if we look at even, I think the way that American royalty comes about is also through money, which is just very interesting. But anyways, yeah, so that's my very brief overview. I know it doesn't seem brief to those who've been listening. I have no idea how long we've been talking. But that is the sort of top history of the Kennedy assassination 60 years ago, which is insane to think about. I encourage our listeners, if you have parents who were alive during the aunts, uncles, older friends, ask them, because I think it really was an impactful time. And I think about that a lot. I remember when I lived in Dubai, thinking about what would happen if something happened to our president while I was abroad, and how the feelings I would have. And even now, I just sort of wonder, even if I didn't like them, I think it would be weird, right? Even if they weren't part of my political party, I think it can still be an attack on your country.
Yeah.
So, and then I also think we've learned a lot from this, right? We learned a lot from what to do, what not to do, how to help. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll post some things online, I promise. And rate and review us. Chris, end us with your normal spiel, because you're way better at giving it than I am.
Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. It helps us a lot. As I said in the beginning, it really, really makes a difference. It gets us in the numbers. It gets other people to check us out because it puts us up on the leaderboard. It's something easy you could do. It doesn't take much, but it really helps us out, getting out there and people listening to us. The more listeners we get, the better off we do, the more content we can create. Any little bit helps, of course. Please reach out to us at TWRD_podcast. As Amanda said, we're going to be posting more here in the future and putting some more content on there. And if you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach out to us. The Waters Run Deep podcast at gmail.com, rather. Reach out to us. Leave us a line. Until next time, thanks for stopping by.